Welcome back to the Beyond Broadcast podcast, a show which takes a behind-the-scenes look at industry professionals and their lives working in the broadcasting and entertainment industry. Today, I'm speaking with Bridget De Goldi. Bridget has been gracing Canterbury's airways for over 25 years as a radio announcer and producer, but she's also a seasoned MC, taking the reins from everything from stadium events to corporate conferences with her unique style and her extra smooth voice. Welcome to the show, Bridget, and thank you so much for joining me.
Jamie, thanks for having me on. It's been great. We've already had a bit of a chat, and Jamie was like, I've got to start recording. We've been having a great time.
I always feel like that's the case with a lot of the guests, is that we have this preamble chat, and I'm like, some of the stuff that I'm not recording can sometimes be the ultimate gem. So I know, Bridget, we're going to be recording some other great stuff in between. And I think the great place to kind of start with is the fact that you were born and raised in Christchurch, from my understanding, as am I. And it's been a long time since I've been back. So I think the big question I have is, what would you say now is the iconic sort of place to go, iconic area now in the Garden City, considering the cathedral was a big part of Christchurch culture? What would you say it is now?
It's funny you say that. I was walking past the cathedral just yesterday, and it's a blight on our city. It's just covered in scaffolding. When people come to town, I say, look, head into town, definitely go to Riverside Market, get yourself on a boat, head over to Diamond Harbour. If it's winter, get up that mountain. The centre of the city is just always buzzing now, and it really feels like an exciting place to be. But also, if you haven't been back for a while, you used to live in the Port Hills. Out west is just growing so much. Rolleston, huge. So huge developments here. You will not recognise it when you come back. How long has it been since you've been back, Jamie?
Oh, geez. It's been 3 years now. So even then, after a solid 3-year gap from the last time I visited, I feel there's going to be a lot of difference. And Riverside Market, weirdly, I did get to see it the last time I was there, but I can imagine there's still been so much changes, so much building, everything else. And I feel like you and I have kind of been through that same transition, Bridget, where we've got to see the city not only destroyed, but completely rebuilt and have almost a new identity in itself. I don't know if you have this opinion, but did you feel Christchurch was kind of always a bit of a grimy secondary cousin to Auckland and Wellington?
Oh, absolutely. And now I go to Auckland, and I just look at the amount of empty space around Newmarket, around Queen Street, and it just doesn't have that vibe that it used to have there. So many people, you would have read it in the news, so many people are moving south. Prices are up there. It used to be, we'll move south so we can save money, but now it's definitely changed. It is the number one growing city. From out my front deck, I can see the stadium being built, which is opening early next year, and it's incredible. So there's not a lot of tall buildings anymore. The stadium's going to be amazing, and of course those businesses that are around the stadium at the moment are gearing up for thousands of people to be streaming out onto the streets and then go into town and party, which is a great place to go. But all the time, there's these new places that I've never seen. So my husband and I on date night, when it happens, we always try and head to somewhere new that we haven't been to before.
It must have been crazy growing up in Christchurch during those early days before the earthquakes and everything else have changed. And we spoke earlier about the fact that you were incredibly young when you went to basically broadcasting school and started getting the training that you needed to enter the industry. And you mentioned 17. So yeah. At what age were you seriously considering a career in radio, and what kind of kicked it off for you? Because I think for a lot of people, they wouldn't be even making a move to go to university at that age.
It's interesting. It was 8. I was 8 years old, and I was in my dad's garage in Leithfield Beach. We lived in this little shack in Leithfield Beach, and my dad always used to let me play with radios, so I loved pulling apart the radios, stripping them down, and then connecting the wires again and seeing which speakers I could get working in the garage. My dad would keep all those big old wooden speakers with the fabric fronts on them, and so I'd rip the back out of those, and then I'd rip the back out of a transistor radio and see if I could make things sound better. I was obsessed with doing that, but I used to listen to Muzzer in the morning on Radio Avon. Murray Ingalls, right? Used to listen to Muzzer in the morning, his amazing breakfast show, and they were running a competition one morning where you got to ring up and choose, they spun a wheel and you got to choose a number. And I chose number 7 and I won an electric frying pan. And I got the electric frying pan and I was like, wow, that phone call as the listener and how good I felt about the whole experience, the excitement of being on the radio, coming away winning a prize that my mum just cooked sausages and that thing for years afterwards. I was like, I want the power and the ability to make somebody feel as good is how I felt that day that I was on the radio. And so it wasn't about me being on the radio. It's about me having the power and the medium to be able to just go out there and spread some good, to give away some stuff that I didn't pay for. I didn't pay for the prizes. We just gave away stuff the whole time, but it's such a good feeling. Like, I'll never forget the day we got to pay off someone's mortgage for the rest of the year later on in my career. And it was like, wow, doing life-changing things for people just through the power of your sales team and your promos and the radio station reaching the right core target demo. It's incredible. It's an incredible feeling. And that's the reason why I love radio. I didn't get into it to get good on the radio, but I just love the buttons, love the speakers, and absolutely love that ability to share some good.
It's funny because you mentioned the fact that obviously it changes lives, and something that I had a conversation with my mother the other day about radio, because she always brings up More FM, and it's odd because the way that she brings it up is as if the hosts are a part of the family. It's like she's had a phone conversation with someone, like, you know how everyone used to twirl the cord on the old landlines. It kind of felt like she was talking to an auntie or something like that. And do you feel like that was kind of like an established part during your childhood as well, is that mum and your dad would be mentioning what was the chat of the town on the radio that day, or was it kind of more or less you were sitting in your bedroom having a wee listen?
No, it was a family thing, and also the locality of it, just being local. I, with my career as, at the start, a breakfast announcer, but then I turned into a continuity announcer. So, a 10 till 3 show during the day. That ability to let people know in each voice break what is happening in their city on the day, I am a huge fan of. There were times later on in my career at ZM where I got the opportunity to do a network show, but it takes away that local flavour. And every single radio boss in town who knows me knows that I love local radio and I love Christchurch, and I know a lot about this city, and why wouldn't I share that? Why wouldn't I go and do some research for the listeners to say, this is happening this weekend, oh my gosh, this is happening right now down Beeley Ave. Not just traffic updates, but actually interesting information about local people doing local things on the day. That's what I love about it, being local. And back then, things were local. Like when I started my radio career, we were local, and there were a few radio stations around, so you'd come away from survey with like a 33% share of the market. Easy.
It's wild to think because, you bring up one other good point, which is the fact that radio is always going to have that power to have that local connection. And you also mentioned the fact that you enjoyed doing the research. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed doing research on you, Bridget, because of the fact that I noticed that very early in your career, you worked for and were representing quite a well-known local and international icon, being John Britton. Now, one of the most respected engineers in the world. How the hell did that come about? And how did you end up working for the foundation?
Oh my gosh, you really have done your research. Well, after broadcasting school, I did my radio internship at Radio Marlborough in Blenheim. And unfortunately, my mum got really ill. She had breast cancer. She got really sick, and she fought it for about 4 years, went into remission, and then all of a sudden, it just took over her body. So when I was in Blenheim, I came back to Christchurch to look after my mum, and she died really quickly. And I was only 19 at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'd loved my time working at Radio Marlborough as an announcer, promotions manager, cover the office at lunchtime as well. You do everything when you're an intern, don't you? And you do it for 20 grand a year. Don't even start me. I think it was 16 at the time. Don't even start. So I got back to Christchurch, and everybody that I'd worked with at C93, which is the radio station I'd done work experience for, when I was at high school, I used to drive in from Rangiora where we lived in the morning and answer their phones, make their coffee, take their birthday calls. Everyone there knew that I was looking for a job, but there were no jobs available. So a friend of mine said that John was looking for a sponsorship and marketing coordinator for the Britton motorcycles. And at the time, we were racing 3 bikes, and we have some amazing riders, Andrew Stroud, Lauren Poole, and they had a really strong racing team, but they didn't have a person who could look after the merchandising side of things and also the sponsorship of the bikes. Because when you sponsor a bike, you have to have all the right decals and everything on the bike, and then all of a sudden someone goes out and has a crash and all the decals come off the bike, and so you just kind of need to really be adaptable in that racing circuit. The eye-opener for me working with John was not just the way that our brains were very similar. I got to know his family really well. I got to know the family business really well. But John was always that visionary guy that would walk in and tell the engineers and the the mechanics exactly what he wanted. And he'd walk out of the room and they'd be like, how do we do that? But they'd always find a way. It was a really number 8 wire approach. They were also doing a lot of carbon fibering at the time. Like the chemicals. When you're working with, there was a big gap under the door to my office, and I'd leave work one day with headaches, and I'm like, what is going on? Oh yeah, the chemicals that we're working with. The team there took me on board. I was the only female working there at the time. They took me on the New Zealand National Motorcycle Grand Prix tour of 5 of the big racetracks around the country, and I learned so much. We packed up the bikes, we drove up to Auckland, and we started up there. It was incredible what I had done to sell merchandise, because I said to John, here's how we're going to make money to fund the bike. We are going to run a merchandise out of, as soon as the Britain motorcycles cross the finish line, usually in first, second and third, I need you, after your media, to come and sign T-shirts, because a normal T-shirt's worth $20, but a signed T-shirt's worth $55. And I worked with Wayne Alexander from a company called Unique Men, very amazing designer, and we designed a really flash range of Britain motorcycle gear, like a linen shirt, a khaki pants, a carbon fibre belt buckle, and all of this stuff would just sell. We had posters, denim jackets, you name it, and we would just sell heaps of merchandise. So after the bikes won, we would just sell all the gear, and that would fund the next round. But of course, sometimes our riders would come off and we'd have to get new leathers made. I learned so much on that tour. And I tell you now, my time at C93 before that, working with a whole bunch of rock dudes, had definitely got me ready for the motorcycle circuit, that's for sure. And then, unfortunately, John came in one day. I was like, hey, John, could you pay me some money? Because sometimes, things were a bit like, sometimes you'd get paid, but other times he'd be really, really busy and forget to put payroll through.
No.
No, it was fine. And he just said to me, Bridget, look, I'm really sick. He's like, I've just found out that I've got cancer and skin cancer, and it's spreading really fast. And he just said, I want you to know this, because I know that you've got a career in radio, and if you were thinking about getting back into it, you should. And ironically, less than a few weeks later, I got a call from C93 saying, look, we've had some changes here. We'd like to know if you'd want to come work with us. And I went to John and I said, what do you think? And he goes, absolutely, go for it. And then John died probably less than 6 weeks later. And I'll never forget going to his funeral in Christchurch Cathedral. And I went there with my dad, and we sat there. It was absolutely packed. And the 3 bikes just rode around and around and around the cathedral while we were all inside celebrating John's life. It was just incredible. And do you know something? Can I tell you this? You know how you have those things, Jamie, where sometimes you get a little message in life that tells you that you're exactly in the right spot. Over 10 years later, I went to New York just on a bit of a holiday, finding myself doing my OE. And there was an exhibition at the Guggenheim Museum called The Art of the Motorcycle. And you went round all of the motorcycles, and it went from olden day motorcycles, more modern motorcycles, and then state-of-the-art motorcycles, which was right at the top. And I went right to the top of this exhibition while I was waiting for my friend to finish work for the day at a cafe. And there, I just stood there, and I looked at the Britain motorcycle, and there was a photo of the Britain team, and there was John, and I was in the photo, and I was like, wow, I'm in the Guggenheim Museum in New York, and I'm looking at a photo of myself. That's epic. And it was like one of those reminders that John was
that's
such
a crazy moment. Because the other thing I was curious about, Bridget, is because I can't imagine what you must have gone through have your mum pass away at 19 years old, and I'm guessing in respect that must have knocked you back a little bit, and then on top of that, having John pass not long after. Was it kind of almost like you said, it was a sign in a sense, because you kind of dipped out of radio for a little bit, and then John having that moment and talking to you and saying, like, Bridget, you really need to start doing this now? Was it kind of like that was the kicker for you, being like, Mum's had her time, John's had his time, and he's saying, like, if I'm not going to do it now, I might not do it ever? Was it kind of like you needed that reset, and you needed that kind of word to be like, you got to just go for it?
Absolutely. And not just that. Yeah, it was like the team at C93 also knew what I was going through as well, and they weren't offering me a handout. They were like, we've actually got a role here for you. And at the time, it was Tim Dyer, Alison Jones, and Simon Bird on breakfast. And soon after that, Alison Jones left, Susie Ellison walked into the role, and then after Susie Ellison, I got my time on breakfast. So many of my other family members had died in that 18-month period as well. Like 2 weeks later, I lost my nana. It was really tough. And you're like, how did you deal with it? I'm going to be honest with you, Jamie. I got out of Rangiora. I moved into a couple of flats in Christchurch and I just drank my way through trays of Canterbury draft cans, as you do when you're 19 and dealing with grief. Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. So it wasn't great. Yeah. It wasn't great, but going to work every day was like amazing. Going to work every day, get up at 4:45 in the morning. That was a wonderful break from the chaos that was my life at the moment. So I was really surprised when I got back in at C93 because I didn't realise the skills that I had built up and that I'd put to the side, and then they all just came to the fore again. And I was working with a whole bunch of rocky people, as you can imagine.
And I think this is the thing I've found interesting because you've gone into, and especially during that time, and from other people I've spoken to who worked in the industry, very male-dominated, both industries. Obviously, the motor industry and radio at that point, especially during the time. But how was it having that balance of your energy in there with Tim and Ben as well? And I have to say, Ben I've met personally through my time at university, and he was the most memorable character I could say I've met during my time at Broadcasting Source. So I can't imagine what it must have been like working with him.
Honestly, Ben would have to be one of the funniest men I've ever met. He used to get his sports news at the sports desk, which was outside the studio. He would put all the papers together, slam them on the desk, open up a briefcase, put them in the briefcase, lock the briefcase, come into the studio, and then open the briefcase, click, click, time for the sports news. He was so funny. Those guys are like my brothers, and they still are. I was on the phone to Tim last week. We stay in touch a lot. Those guys have been there for me. And you say blokey, even when I was at Britain Motorcycles and also when I was at C93, those people, and a lot of them were just that little bit older than I was at the time, they just became my brothers. I don't have any biological brothers, but those people became my brothers. I could talk to them about anything and they made it very, very open. I mean, we spoke about everything. They always checked in and saw how I was doing. A lot of dark humour in those days. There's a guy called Ian Avery, Avo. He was there right from the get-go as well. We went to broadcasting school together, actually. I was having lunch with him last week. We're still the very best of friends. And it's because they understand how dark humour can get you through hard times. And they were all there with the really, really bad, crass jokes, which are probably offendable now. And by the way, Jamie, just to let you know, if people worry about women in that environment, I tell you now, I gave as good as I got. So I really did. If there's one thing about having quick wit back in those days, you didn't survive long if you weren't quick off the bat. And I tell you now, we had so many fun times. There were not many times where I would go home crying, going, the boys were mean to me today. They were pretty good, but maybe they went home crying some days because I'd been mean to them. What? It was one of those environments. But no, you're right.
I was going to ask you that.
It was a really male-dominated area. But one of the things that we were proudest of at C93 is that we were owned locally by Ian Harris and Roger Crozier. They were the last two people in, I think, the whole of New Zealand that privately owned a radio station. And that station has an absolutely rich history that I wasn't part of. I was still at school then. They'd been on air in Riccarton Road. Then they'd come to our Kilmore Street studios. And to have a locally owned radio station, which was owned privately, you were just so proud of it because you weren't part of any huge organisation. Every single person in the office, there was no red tape. They could give you an answer on the day to what you needed. And then it was acquired by Radio Otago, and then all of a sudden became Radio Works, which we can talk about a bit later. But yeah, they were just like my brothers, and I met some amazing women there too, like amazing women. And after my time at C93, which was a rock station, they changed it to the all-new C93, which played more mainstream, kind of more FM music. And I knew it was my time to get off, and that's when Hilary Muir came up from Dunedin, and she was with Tim and Ben on the show, and she is also one of my dearest friends to this day as well. She's an absolute bestie and immediate. In fact, the other day she celebrated 21 years at the Breeze. 21 years.
That is incredible. And
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that I do love about especially in Christchurch in particular, the local radio scene, is I feel like a lot of the hosts have such longevity. And I think it comes down to a lot of factors, but mostly the fact that you guys live and breathe the community. It's not like the kind of fake radio host who pretends to kind of give a shit. It's like you guys are deeply ingrained as to what's going on in the city and actually have an understanding of what people want to know about, what people want to talk about. And I think that's beautiful. And I did want to touch on what you mentioned as well, which is the fact that you guys are one of the only independent stations going up against these big boys, and you feel like there was a bit of jealousy from the corporate side of things where they were like, we can't touch these guys because they're so good at being on the pulse and what's going on? Or do you feel like they just saw you guys as kind of small fry and didn't really care?
Well, you can't see us as small fry when we were taking such a huge chunk of the market share, especially with males, 25 to 44-year-old males, bang. We were there. We would just clean out that category the whole time. I can't pull up individual figures, but I just remember at every single survey party, some of the survey parties, Jamie, used to go on for like 2 and 3 days. Oh, don't even start me. Honestly, I woke up under a fountain one morning. I don't want to talk about it. We were just so proud. We were all so proud to be working there. And we had the C93 FM Rock Patrol, which every morning, because the show would go from 6 until 10, but at 9 o'clock, I hit the streets. And the trailer, the start of it, Jamie, was the C93 FM Rock Patrol with Bridget on a street corner near you. I mean, you'd never get away with that now,
God.
right? I'm parked up here on Manchester Street today. Like, honestly, I think back, and I don't even cringe because it was a different era. But the best thing about being on C93 or radio in that day was not just the people that we worked with, the fact that they were smoking in the studio. We're talking Lee Hanna, oh my gosh, John Clark, Lee Hanna, honestly, the legends that I was on air surrounded with, they just had these really deep voices, and because they were smoking the whole time. Ian Mackey did 10 to 2, amazing broadcasters. Phil O'Day, rock, classic rock, C93 FM. I guess the thing about the radio station at the time was that we were just so incredibly not only passionate about rock music, but passionate about delivering information to people that they didn't know yet. 7:40 tomorrow morning, we've got a huge announcement. If you're a rock fan and you love big concerts, 7:40 tomorrow morning. Now, because of the internet these days, there's nothing like that. Everybody knows the news as soon as it comes out. Everybody knows who's touring. At 7:40 the next morning, we got to not only have Eddie Vedder on the phone that we'd pre-recorded the afternoon before.
Of course, but they don't know that.
Yeah, we could announce that Pearl Jam were going to be at Lancaster Park. You know, like, we got that opportunity to have and release embargoed information, and everybody was surprised and shocked. And the only place they were going to get that information was at 7:40 the next morning on C93 FM. And that doesn't exist now. That's where you get your radio listeners. They're like, if I don't listen to this, I'm actually going to miss out. And don't get me wrong, I still love listening to the radio now. But I know that whatever I hear on the radio, I've usually already heard before. Or I already know. They might be exploring a storyline, but it's about a story I've already heard. Or I know that Lord is coming to town, you know? So
yeah, the sense of FOMO is kind of missing unless it's something that's more related to maybe the personal story or the lore of the hosts themselves, where they may be talking about a personal story across 4 voice breaks rather than anything that's like, new information. That's interesting. And also, I did want to go back to one point as well, where you're talking about these fantastic hosts that have been chain smoking like no tomorrow and probably drinking petrol. In a sense as well, I'm curious, do you feel like we're missing those unique characters and identities that maybe we had a couple of years back because of the fact that there is sort of like a pre-templated sort of idea of what the host should be now, which is happy, cheery all the time? Kind of sounds similar to the other hosts that came probably in the previous 3-hour group. Or do you think like maybe I'm looking at it kind of like an old fogey that maybe those days are done and there is like kind of an expectation of what a host should be now?
Yeah, well, I think the hosts now have way more of a responsibility, especially to deal with their own mental health and share that as well with other people. We're in a totally different generation now. Back then, boys didn't cry. You didn't know what was happening with anyone. They were just going through their own struggles. It was a totally different time. And some of the people that we worked with, we had Darcy Waldegrave as well. We had the Green Man. One night the Green Man ran out of prizes, so he decided to give away sniffs of my seat in the studio. Like, honestly, like the worst, the most. I mean, you'd end up in court with that kind of stuff now. But it was all just in jest, and I'm not saying that it was okay, but at the time it was just what we did in the rock world, and now to see people even like Paul Flynn be so incredibly open, guys like Bryce Casey, just to be so open with the way that they are and the way that they're feeling, I think is actually fueling a generation of men who can actually go, I'm not feeling that great, and it's not okay to not feel great, and I can ask my friends for help. To be honest, back then in the late 90s, early 2000s, that wasn't an option for guys, and I think that we are way better off. Hosts now do carry more of a responsibility. We would just turn on the radio, have some fun times, and don't get me wrong, even with the boys at Hodaki at the moment, there is a time and a place for that. They put it in a podcast and they say, by the way, there's going to be swearing and there's going to be really, really bad themes in this podcast if you want to listen to it, but it's not on mainstream radio like it used to be.
And do you think in a way it's good that it kind of had that change because of the fact that, yeah, as you said, there is a sense of responsibility of not just thinking you can say whatever you want. Jesus, like, you know, yeah, as you said, you could not get away with it now. It would probably be like cancelled straight away. But in a sense, I kind of thought about one thing, which is like those hosts can't go back on air ever. Like, essentially, because they've had that time and they're like a relic of a past generation almost.
Sometimes when a person is so extrovert and so crass online, it's often because behind the microphone, they're dealing with their own stuff as well.
That was my thought, yeah.
It totally is like that. And you see that with a lot of people. After C93, I was promotions manager when Radio Works was formed. We got extra stations. We got The Rock, The Edge, Channel Z as well. Clark was on there at the time, Clark Gayford. And
soft mention. Nice one.
Yeah. So we have, there was such a change in the way that we did things. And so I was, from being on the radio, after it changed from the rock station, and I met Hillary and she came up for the new branding of C93. I got to meet a lot of those radio announcers through The Rock, The Edge, and Channel Z especially, who were really different on tour. Like really different on tour. They'd come and they'd be all extroverty on the microphone, a lot like a lot of people are in broadcasting, but behind the scenes they had to have things a particular way in order to perform. You know, and we would get in trouble a lot as well. We used to run a promotion at the Edge called Edge Summer Jam. You know, we had a few bands that we'd booked in who were doing naughty stuff in hotel rooms, and then all of a sudden I turn into this event manager and I'm just like, oh my gosh. It was just really interesting times when you've got, you know, band like Silverchair staying in town, and then all of a sudden the hotel staff are ringing up and they're like, there's needles in their room, and you're like, actually he's a diabetic, that's why the needles are in the room, like little things like that. But then you get a local band who I won't say are from Christchurch, but we all know who they are, you know, throwing a chair into a TV in the hotel room. It's like, oh, come on, you're from Christchurch, grow up. One of the cool things I got to do at C93 was take some of the listeners on tour to places. And there was that band called Presidents of the USA. You know that song, Millions of Bitches? They were playing in Wellington, so I got to take some listeners up there. And after they got to meet the band, the guys in the band were like, oh, we don't even know where to go out. So my friend Emily Turnbull and I went out with them and had the best night. We were hosting the band in Wellington, in a city we didn't even know very well. And it was so much fun. The listeners came as well. It was brilliant. It was like, where am I going to get the chance to just fly to a different city and hang out with the band that we just watched? So I loved the opportunity to get behind the scenes of what was happening. And we had a lot to do with Canterbury Rugby at the time as well, along with a couple of my mates. I was doing competitive aerobics at the time. Don't even start me. Up the bum leotards. I formed the Crusaders cheerleaders in 1998. It was 1998. And so I was doing competitive aerobics. Yeah. We just went to the Crusaders Hall of Fame thing a few weeks ago where they actually paid homage to the cheerleaders, and some of us, that was so long ago, but we all showed up, had a great time. We're all mums now. And So I started the cheerleaders, and as part of my job as promotions manager at C93 FM, I got to manage the cheerleaders from work. So I just ordered pom-poms, high heel boots. We had a choreographer, Nick Barr. She was incredible. And we just trained at Pro Fitness twice a week, and we would get out there and get paid for getting on Lancaster Park / Jade Stadium for dancing each week. And then when the Crusaders were away, we would dance on the bar at the Holy Grail, and they used to lead us into the Holy Grail on horses and Harleys and classic cars. It was such a brilliant time. Yeah, so I did that as well. What?
What the hell? Like, your career is wild. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface yet, Bridget, and like, I feel like you've had 1,000,001 lives in the space of like a very short amount of time.
It was funny. My daughter was in the band quest last week at school, and I went to school to listen to their practice, and Rob, who's the guitar teacher, was like, he's this pommy guy, and he's like, oh, that's Bridget. She's on C93, and they were singing My Hero by the Foo Fighters. And I was like, brilliant. Yeah, when I interviewed Dave Grohl, this is how he would say the song is. Like, this is how he would go into it. This is the attitude that he had. We're not just going to watch videos on YouTube. He's like, we're going to listen to Evelyn's mum, Bridget, because she's actually interviewed Dave Grohl. I'm like, yeah. At the time that this song came out, yeah, I interviewed him. So it was actually really cool to be able to be acknowledged in that way, because that's just so not me anymore.
Is it kind of like sometimes you feel like you're reliving the glory days, like kind of being like, oh, but like Bridget, it's like insane, because I think you must have an incredible amount of stories, and you were talking about how you're working in promotions. Like, what would you, because the thing, when I think about promotions, and I'm sure this is the running joke, and anyone that works in a radio station is promotions or activations, whatever they call them now, is essentially a sausage sizzle in front of the Bunnings or the placemakers. But it sounds like you did a hell of a lot more than that. What would you say was probably the most memorable activation or promo that you did, aside from obviously all the other crazy stuff you were doing at C93?
Okay, so this was with... Sure, it was with The Edge. We did because you never have any money for these promotions, right?
Yeah.
So the sales rep's always like, nah, we don't have a lot of money, but they want to do something amazing and they're going to spend this much. So come up with something amazing. We did this promo called Drop It or Drive It, which I loved. So basically, I think that might have been at ZM actually. And what we did was we winched the empty chassis of a car up on a crane above Value Cars in Morehouse Ave. And it just sat there for a week. And then nationwide, we canvassed to find the winner of a person who would get to push one of two buttons, and one of the buttons dropped the car and the other one lowered the car and they could drive it away. It was like a $15,000 BMW, and of course we had to take all the oil the oil tank and everything out. But that promotion, there were thousands of people that showed up that morning to watch the car just explode. And unfortunately for us, the person got the car lowered and they got to drive it away. Damn it. But that's okay. But the other thing is, with no money, we used to run Summer Jam on, which was that concert that The Edge did. And I was like, oh, we've got no money, but we need to give away tickets. So I went down to Anatos. You know that jam place that's I think it's in Geraldine?
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
So it's just about ideas. And I worked with so many amazing minds. Shelley Arnold, Karina Homer, who was Karina Bush at the time. We just come up with these ideas. We went down and picked up all the secondhand jam, the stuff that didn't make it to the jam bottles for whatever reason. And on Morehouse Ave, we filled up a giant swimming pool, an inflatable one, with jam. And then we'd get people to swim in it, and we'd put the tickets to Summer Jam at the bottom. And I just never forget seeing these. I mean, one person even got a full Edge tattoo on their thigh for some tickets to some concert. And then 3 weeks later, we changed the logo. Don't even start.
Oh, no.
I know, right? But there was just so many amazing, cool things that we did. And even it was at ZM, where I was local host from 10 till 3. I did that for 5 years as well, after going back to broadcasting school, because I thought I wanted to be a journalist. Don't start me. Didn't want that. And I did 5 years at ZM under Christian Boston and Jason Winstanley, two of the smoothest operators in the business. They're incredible. And we did so many great promotions there. The Diamond Drop, where we had Polly and Grant on breakfast in the morning, and we had, what was it, a $10,000 diamond. And so what we did was we put a helicopter over Latimer Square and we dropped 10,000 marshmallows. And inside one of the marshmallows was a fake massive diamond that I'd drawn a little motif on the back, so I knew that it was the real one. So we had thousands of people there and they were opening up the marshmallows to see if they could find the diamond. Wow, promotion went well. The guy found the diamond. He drove straight round to his girlfriend's workplace. He got down on one knee and he proposed to her. That was wonderful. The show finished. Polly and Grant did a great job of the broadcast. They went back to Wellington and I had to clean up 10,000 squashed marshmallows in a public space.
Oh,
wow.
Shit.
And then the Christchurch City Council sent us the bill. Well, we learned a lot that day. So there was just so many cool things. But do you know something? When you can hit people with what they want, C93, we used to drive a pallet of beer around town with Canterbury Draft. We just drive around for 6 weeks with a pallet of beer on the back, and every single time you saw the pallet, you registered to win it. One of the most simple and effective promotions for Canterbury Draft. It was incredible. And then, of course, when we were at the rugby, I was MC at the rugby with Tim Dyer as well as doing the cheerleading. And then we'd also have the pallet at the rugby as well. And do you know what I'd do, Jamie? This is great. I knew the guys in the sound desk quite well, so I'd go and do my emceeing and I'd be like, it's the Crusaders cheerleaders, woo! Then I'd go into the thing, take off my big jacket, have my cheerleading outfit on, then the girls would run out and I'd just tag on the back and we'd do our routine. So that's called working 2 jobs on the one night.
Oh, mate. Yeah, you really thought it through. And this is insanity, Bridget. Like, I just don't know how you managed to have the time to do most of the stuff. And, like, at the time, looking back, do you kind of feel like were you burning the candle at both ends? Like, somehow managing to make it all work, just, like, with very little time? Like, how did you handle such a massive workload, essentially?
You just I don't know, actually. I just partied a lot. And got flatmates that understood that I kind of needed to be in bed by about 9. Not that ever happened. It was just fun times. You just get up and it would be the adrenaline of being able to go in and make a difference to someone's day by giving them stuff, by ringing their workplace, by showing up, by, just by sharing the fun that you could have on a daily basis. I mean, it was just so much fun. And don't get me wrong, there were times when it got tricky. Just because we're like, how can we keep reinventing the wheel all the time? How can we keep getting more prizes to give away? But that's when you've got your experts in their field who would actually go and find national clients that could put up massive prizes for people. And it wasn't all about the prizes. It was all about having great banter on air as well. And that's where Tim, Ben and I needed to stay close so that I'm not just the girly laugh cart, so that I can actually bring content to the show and make women who are listening to C93 FM be proud of the fact that they're listening, be heard, be represented, find out what's going on, and also give shtuck back to the guys. And also play great rock music as well, because it was all about the music. It was all about the music.
And that's the big change now, because now radio's turning into more about the content, more or less, more than the music, because everyone has the option to be able to obviously use Spotify or any other streaming service. And in a way, do you feel like that puts actually a lot more pressure on the hosts being able to kind of facilitate that connection through what is essentially like a 1 minute, 2 minute voice break? Do you think it's harder now to be a broadcaster than it probably was back in the day, where it was people went to radio to listen to music and also to hear the chat? Now it's just the chat, basically.
I do think it is harder, especially when you're canvassing for stories and canvassing for information that people already know about it. So you've got to develop the storyline. If there's, More FM are great at doing that. And the reason why is because you've got Simon back there, Lana, who's just an absolute treasure trove of wonderful stories and human interaction stories on a daily basis. And then you've got Speedy and Bondi, who, like, Bondi's just a hockey... I'm just a hockey mum in Christchurch. Bondi's just a hockey dad. We just do other jobs during the day. Like, that's all we do. Like, Bondi, I just see him at hockey all the time. We're just parents. But it's that local connection that they have the ability to share on a national scale with relatable stories that are not just cringy, but happy, and the stories are sad. That's what gets people going. But that's so funny, Jamie, because you're sounding a bit old school, because when I look at my 15 and 11-year-old girls, we're driving in the car, they don't want to listen to anybody's chat, right? The only thing they want to listen to is the pop quiz in the morning on More FM. And the only reason why is so they can test themselves. People are so selfish these days. My kids are like, oh, what am I going to get out of this? If I do the pop quiz, I might get 9 out of 10 and I'll feel good about myself. So it really has changed. I don't think the younger generation listens so much for the chat. But when you look at what amazing broadcasters like the team on The Rock are doing in the morning, and also Brie and Clint in the afternoon, they are so relatable because they have a good relationship with each other. It's like stepping into a room full of mates. And then there are others that don't have it that much, that they're just kind of showing up and doing what they think they should be doing, and it's still not gelling. And I'm not mentioning any names because everybody already knows who they are, you know? It's interesting. And I've been in situations where sometimes the gel doesn't work that well. But then it did work that well because we hung out together a lot. I was producing an on-air with Jason Gunn and Dave Fitzgerald. After ZM, I moved to Classic Hits Breakfast. And at the start, it was good, but it was really interesting because Jason had come over from TV and we learned so many things from his TV skills, but he also learned a lot from Dave Fitzgerald about radio skills, you know? Funny facial expressions just mean dead air. And then Jason went on to be amazing on radio because he learned so much from Dave Fitzgerald, who's the ultimate professional. And it was about that time that I was like, oh, I'm not feeling that great. Oh, am I throwing up all the time? Oh, I'm going to have a baby. So I left then. And so sometimes it does take time to get to know each other as a crew, but if you're going to really, really invite your listeners in, you have to get along with each other. You have to spend time outside the show together to get those genuine bonds and those genuine connections happening on air.
Yeah, it's not just a formula. It's not like a formulaic thing where you're just trying to mix personalities. You actually have to think about how the people are going to interact with each other in a way that doesn't seem manufactured. It seems like there is a real relationship. Yeah, and you're right. I have noticed in the past there has been very obvious pairings which just do not work, and it's like obvious it doesn't work, and yet they still continue down it. And others that it's scary how natural it feels, and you kind of do wonder, are they actually friends off air? And more likely than not, they aren't. And I was actually curious as well because you switched allegiances. You moved from what was at the time obviously RadioWorks, MediaWorks, to then NZME. Was that scary for you in a sense? Because I know for a lot of people it's almost unheard of sometimes to switch from one network to the other unless they have no intention of going back. What made you make that decision?
Well, there was a time there where I did go overseas. I decided to go and just do my OE because when my mum died when I was 19, I didn't really get the chance to do that. There was a lot going on. I was working. I got to about 27 and I decided to go overseas for 6 weeks. I'm going overseas for 6 weeks. So I get to London, go down to Italy, see some friends, go to Spain, get on it with my friends in Spain, say to my friends at dinner, I think I might not go back to New Zealand. And they're like, do it. So I go down to a phone box in Spain and I call Rob McDonald, who was my boss at MediaWorks at the time. And I'm like, hey, Rob, I'm not coming back. And he went, Bridgie, good. We'll see you when you're back. And I spent a couple of years, because I love snowboarding, right? So I spent a couple of years over living in London, and then I did 2 seasons being a chalet maid, snowboarding in the French Alps. And that was amazing because it was like this release of pressure. You know, like when you've worked so hard and you've dealt with quite a lot of grief, it was just this, I was overseas. I didn't have to worry about my radio career. I made sure I didn't do any radio over there. Did get offered a stupid job in London. It only paid like 12 grand a year, £12,000. I was like, no thanks. So I just worked as a waitress when I was in London. But Jamie, I worked at Wagamama, and it was really interesting because this was the Wagamama that all the famous people came to.
And hell yeah.
I know. And I'd moved to Sumner and I'd started surfing. And then one day Kelly Slater just walks into the restaurant. I'm like, And of course, I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Bridget from New Zealand. I help run the Roxy Surf Jams in New Zealand. And so I got to meet Dustin Hoffman. I got to meet Ruby Wax. I got to meet Kelly Slater. Just people doing everyday stuff. But because I was in the big buzz of London and I wasn't in tiny old Christchurch, it was like, wow. Then my flatmate, Natalie, and I went to Harrods one day. We were getting some photos developed because that's what you did back in the day of our trip to Turkey. And Posh and Bex were there. And we were so gutsy. I just walked up to the minder and I was like, hi, this is my friend Natalie and we're from New Zealand. And is it okay if we say hi? And he was nice, but she was incredible. She came over. She wanted to see all of our photos from Turkey. They signed stuff for us. They were so excited to meet some people from New Zealand. I tell you now, before that, Posh Spice was whatever in my life. But after meeting her, I was like, what an incredible woman. She just made us feel so empowered about what we were doing, quitting our jobs in Christchurch, moving overseas, going snowboarding, you know. She was just like, oh, that's just amazing. So I came back to Christchurch with all these stories. But funny thing is, you know Ruby Wax, she's a UK journalist, right? So when I was talking to her in Wagamama, I said, look, I think I might be a journalist because I've done radio. I think I want to be a TV journalist. She goes, oh, honey, you'll be so good at that. Oh, wrong accent. And
That's
so
all right. We won't judge you for it.
So she kind of inspired me. She goes, yeah, go get your qualifications. So I moved back to New Zealand and decided to go back to broadcasting school 10 years after I'd been there and did my journalism degree. And I knew within 3 or 4 weeks of the course, I didn't really want to be a journalist. But I still did the course anyway. Met some amazing people. I just found some of the course was overlapping to a lot of what I already knew in radio. So I did that course. I did a contract for 12 months up in Napier. They were relaunching Hot 93 FM to become a More FM in Napier. The studios are in Hastings. So I moved up north, renovated an old house and got some money and then came back to Christchurch. And that's when I finished my studies. Tim Dyer was working at now NZME and he called me and he said, we need someone on days for ZM. We need a day host, we need local. And I did that gig for 5 years, working under Christian Boston, Jason Winstanley, the most amazing fun time I've ever had in radio. And fun time, not in old school radio days, but fun time in the new era. Like we got to run some amazing promotions. We had a Black Thunder team there. We had 3 Black Thunders out on the streets, an amazing Black Thunder team, and we just ran huge ass parties all the time. We did this one called ZM's Blind Date, where we decided to blindfold everyone and then get them all in this bar and put a curtain down the middle, guys on one side, chicks on the other side, and then we pulled the curtain down after they'd all had a couple of Midoris. It was just brilliant. I mean, you probably still couldn't get away with that now, but just the promotions that we had, when I was getting married, I was like, I might run a bridal promotion on here. So we had a promotion called ZM's Runaway Bride. All these brides dressed up, trying to win their wedding, catering, you name it. They started at the radio station, and in the time of my show, which was 5 hours, they had to physically get as far away as they could from the radio station. And one of them ended up just north of Wellington, and she won everything. And it was so much fun. But I could only have done that ZM job. I mean, a couple of the hours of the show were pre-recorded because I was a promotions person there as well. Yeah, so I could have only done that ZM job with the support of the amazing Black Thunder team, Rebecca Glasson, Jono Riddler. We had Jess Truesdale. They were just incredible people, great ideas, and so much energy as well. Crystal Sagrove was in there as well. Amazing team. And we just had fun. And we played great music and we ran huge dance parties. So yeah. Oh my gosh, it has actually been quite a fun career. Some days I'm like, oh. And now my girls are like, what did you used to do, Mum? I'm like, don't worry, honey. I'll tell you later.
I feel like your kids must just be wondering, like, what did Mum actually do? Because it just sounds like she was having fun all the time and wasn't even working. Because the stories you have are incredible, Bridget, and it's kind of crazy that it then came to a point where you then moved into more of the agency side of things in respect to becoming voiceover talent, probably one of the most recognizable voices in many ways in radio for basically being what I would call the new world lady. Like, how did that come about? Like, how did that change come about? Because you went from obviously producing with Fitzy and Jason Gunn, and then what made you decide then I'm just going to go into voicing and solely doing ads, among other things? How did that come about, and why did you make that decision?
It was interesting because when I'd left to go have my babies, I was working at Classic Hits, and then pretty much a week after I had my babies, Ben Harris was running More FM then, and he called up and he goes, can we just have you filling in as an announcer was like, yep, can I bring my baby into the studio? He's like, absolutely. So I got to take Lucia in there, and I'd be open with the listeners when I was on air. Just be like, oh, look, I've got my baby in the studio today. Lucia's here. If I put 3 songs on in a row, she's probably having a nappy change or a feed, but this show is all about you, so let's talk about what's happening around Christchurch today. It's like, I just really loved that opportunity. Ben Harris opened the door for me at More FM, and I got to know the team there who were incredible. 5 months after the earthquake, that's when the opportunity came up to do New World. They were looking for an in-store voice. They'd recently put video screens in their store, and the product that was on their screens, they wanted to have a voiceover for that. I know the person who installed the video screens into their store, and he was running the back end of audio. So all I had to do was just a few weeks of trial, provide some audio, and he would pop it in the back end alongside videos that were made. And that was just on 15 years ago, and I've been doing it every single week for 15 years, and I missed 1 week, and that's when I had my second daughter, Evelyn. Every single week.
That is incredible. How do you manage that, Bridget? Because this is the other thing. You're mentioning you're a parent, and I saw in an interview, in an article that you had done a wee while back, that you said it's obviously clear that you're not Superwoman, but like, do you have like a pretty good support network for yourself to be able to do these things?
Oh, absolutely. A husband, Mark, is pretty awesome. His job is quite flexible as well. So, for example, I'm a corporate MC at the moment, got a gig this week, got a gig in a couple of weeks. Often those gigs I'm travelling, away for a couple of nights, hair, makeup, all the bizzo that goes with it. And I'd be fine if I didn't have a full-on family who are really busy. In fact, the girls are busier than I am, that's for sure. I've got so many commitments, it's ridiculous. But Mark's really supportive, and I've got my sisters live in town, my dad's around. So I am really well supported. But to be honest, you just like all mums out there, you just do it because it's fun. You've got to love what you do. And I love doing corporate emceeing because I get together with a whole bunch of inspired people in a room, and we just keep re-inspiring each other. I absolutely love it. And there is a place for it. And AI cannot replace me in front of a room full of people. That is not something that AI can do very well. But I bumped into this guy at a conference I was at a few months ago. He runs a tech firm in Auckland, an AI tech firm. And I think it's called New Zealand AI. And he goes, what do you do? I said, I voice ads. And he goes, oh yeah, you're screwed. And just walked off.
Jesus.
He's like, you're screwed.
That's
I'm like,
brutal.
okay. And I know that people can use AI voicing, but what I try and do with the New World ads is I do about 6 or 7 scripts a week. I write them as well, and I liaise with the marketing department at Foodstuffs South Island. And what I do is I really try and put some real feeling into it. It's like, get inspired with the fresh range of recipes you'll find online at newworld.co.nz. This week, we share our recipe for tender butterfly chicken using, and really giving it some feeling in the voice that I know AI can't do yet, but I know we'll be able to do one day. They really appreciate it. I love working with the team from Foodstuffs. I love working with my team at TV5, which is the name of the company that do it. And it's been every single week. I love it. And then, do you know what inspires me, Jamie, is when I'm in somewhere and I hear really boring voiceovers. It's like, check this week's specials here at Price Connect for a great deal. And you're like, oh, come on, try harder.
You don't like a client read voice? Like, you don't like a client read ad? Come on, mate. They're everyone's favourite. Everyone loves them in radio.
It's not client voice. I mean, the clients that are the best are the ones who are just themselves. But when you hear a voiceover in store, when you're in somewhere, and they're just basically barking at you to pick up the product they want you to buy and take it to the counter, it's like you can actually make somebody's experience okay when it's in store. It's like, when I'm voicing the ads, I try and feel like I'm the one pushing the trolley around. Do I want to be yelled at? No. Do I want to be barked at? Nah. Just talk to me like I've had a hard day at work because I'm just getting some food at New World before I go home and feed the kids. Don't bark at me. Make it a good idea. So that's what I do. And the other thing is, it's like, come here. I've got a bit of a secret. If you want to buy chicken this week, buy the fresh, boneless, free-range chicken thighs because they're only $5.99 a kilo, So that's the difference. I try and invite. But then again, at the end of the day, it's just a voicing job. I absolutely love it. I'm really proud to work for the Foodstuffs brand. And it's so funny. I do voiceovers as well for phone systems, Jamie. Oh my gosh. A couple of weeks ago, because of fraud, I work for SBS Bank, which is an Invercargill-based bank, and they are such a great bunch of people. They're Invercargill-based. They all roll their R's. I'm a customer of SBS. When you ring their call centre, they're all based in Invercargill. They're so good. So I voice their phone system. And a couple of weeks ago, because of the frauds and the scams out there, they were getting me to revoice some of the phone options. Please listen, because our options have now changed. Press 1 if you think you've been the victim of a fraud or a scam. And I'm like, oh, who's stupid enough to be the victim of a fraud or a scam in this day and age? Well, Jamie, 4 days ago, I clicked on some random app to redesign my bathroom in AI, and they took $129 out of my bank account, and I had to ring up my bank, listen to myself for a minute and a half before I got through to a person and tell them that I'd been scammed. Yeah. So,
it's like, I wouldn't know how to react to that, Bridget. And like, even when you were doing the voicing of boneless chicken breasts, like I just have the biggest grin on my face. Like, and I wish the listener could see it, because your voice is so iconic, and it kind of like is very hard to separate the voice from yourself, because it's like, it's hard to picture it, and it's incredible. But yeah, it must be a bit of a, and I'm going to use the term, it must be a mind fuck for you hearing your own voice kind of almost mocking you from being like, you've been scammed? Okay, well, you're gonna have to wait in the line.
I know. It's like, you are place number 3 in the queue. I'm like, I don't want to wait. Put me through. And then I get through to the lady and I'm like, hi. Yeah, I just had to listen to myself, and they just think it's hilarious. They're such a great team. But I guess the thing about corporate voicing is, not a lot of people realise that when you call their business, that is their first point of contact. And people in a particular age demographic, they have to pick up the phone and talk to someone. Okay, that's just what they have to do, because that's the way they do it. They don't want to book online. They don't want to download the app. They want to talk to a person. And often you ring, especially a lot of Christchurch businesses, it's like, welcome to EGM Hours, press 1 for Debbie, press 2 for Darren in the workshop, and press 3 if you'd like to leave a message. Thank you. Beep. And they don't actually realise that they could get, and doesn't have to be corporate and cheesy, because I do lots of different voicing as well. In fact, check out all of my voice reels at bridgetdegoldi.com. I just launched my website, Jamie. We need to give that a push.
Oh, we have to give it a plug. Yeah, of course.
So, basically, I like to be able to be the welcoming person, whether it's at a conference, on the phone, or even just in person at smaller events as well. I really love to be that welcoming person, because if there's one thing that radio taught me, it's to make people leave our interaction feeling really good about what they're doing and feeling really good about themselves. And that's just been my only mission in life, raising daughters as well. Sometimes I get it wrong. There was an incident over the weekend where mummy got it very wrong. It's like, just with everything, with parenting, with any business interaction, you just want to leave making people feel better. I have also just spent the last 4 years managing the Canterbury home shows here in Christchurch for a company called Exhibitions and Events New Zealand, because I wanted to try my hand at large events, and it was incredible. It was so good working with the team from Exhibitions and Events New Zealand. They run the Auckland home show, which is an absolute juggernaut, but they also run 2 shows here in Christchurch here, March and October. And I'd never hit the ground running in sales and large event management. And I did it. I did it for 4 years, and I was only ever going to really do it for that time because the girls are really busy at the moment, but I'm still working with the team, which is great. I get to do their videos, I get to do their explainer videos, and get to go on. I'm heading up to Auckland soon to go to the Auckland home show and just get in front of the camera and get people inspired about their homes. That's what it's about.
Bridget, I love the fact that it seems like you're always just looking for that next challenge. It's like you don't shy away from the fact that like potentially doing stuff like taking on the role with the Canterbury home show is going to be difficult. It's something that's going to be a completely like tough learning experience, but you just take it by the horns and we'll just see what happens and like go for it. Is that's always been your approach?
Yeah, it has been, but also you can tell when you're dealing with a person who is managing a company, or maybe they own the company. You can tell whether they are going to be there with you through the ups and the downs, especially at the start. I took the role on at the start of 2020, okay, and by March 2020, we couldn't run events, but we had people's money. And it's like, well, how do we give back all their money and not go out of business? Like, we couldn't run large-scale events. We get 10,000 people per show to these shows here in Christchurch. We couldn't operate at all. So my first hurdle was to say to these people, oh, hi, I'm Bridget, I'm new with the home show. By the way, the show's not happening. A couple of clients were like, what do you mean the show's not happening? I'm like, remember how Jacinda just locked the country down? There's nothing I can do about it. And some of those clients have come back to me in the last couple of years and gone, I'm really sorry I was such an asshole. I was just so scared for my business at the time. I didn't know what to do. And I took it out on you, and I'm really sorry. So you have to be a bit Teflon in sales, don't you? You have to be a little bit Teflon.
Because they're expecting results, yeah.
But it's funny, I learned how to sell. When you're in front of the camera, or when you're working in the creative industry, you're not out there on the hardline sales front. Sales is hard, and sales is rewarding, and sales needs constant work. It's like a garden that if you don't water it, everything's going to die. So I needed to grow up and adult a little bit and get my head around sales, and I can confidently say that I've got that now. It's just, honestly, Jamie, it's like doing what you're doing. It's like, what string can I put in my bow now? I'm actually thinking of, real estate auctioneer next. Don't even start. I just think what's going to see me through to my 60s.
Well, it seems like a reliable career transfer. After being in radio in Christchurch, you have to become a real estate agent. It's like you have to be one of those Harcourts represented one with the nice blue blazer. It's the bread and butter.
Do you know something? The boys that I worked with at C93, both of them are in real estate now and doing very well. But all it is it's looking at a general public situation and then individualizing each person's needs in that. It's like, okay, cool. We're dealing with this person, this particular house. How can I make their experience great and do everything I can? Some people are really, really good at it. Other times you see people get into it and they go, not for me. You got to respect that as well. Real estate's hard. But for me, it's just about the performance industry at the moment when it comes to emceeing events, voicing stuff, and also I love presenting. I love presenting videos. So, for example, I do some work for Alpine Spas at the moment. They've got these really intricate spa pools that take 4 to 5 minutes to explain the features. So they get me to make videos on all the features, and I just take the spa pool and then I write all of the beautiful features, and then I humanize those features. How does this feature benefit you? And get really passionate about it. And so product videos on people's websites are something that business owners, I don't think, do that well. And there's not really a company out there that specializes in just product videos for people's websites, that a human like me goes into your business, has a look around and goes, people don't know about this stuff. How do we explain it to them? So I'm enjoying doing that at the moment. And to be honest, Jamie, I'm doing it because it does fit around the very busy schedule of my girls, who in 10 years' time will have flown the coop and I'll be on to something else.
100%. And Bridget, I'd love to also go back to, you're talking about, like you said, product videos, voicing, variety of other things. I hate bringing it up because I feel like it comes up in every chat that I have, AI. And you are 100% right. The emotion that is attached to those sorts of areas and those sorts of verticals is insane. And having AI voiceover, like, for example, the company I currently work for is testing it out. And I always keep on repeating to them, I honestly think you guys should avoid this. I know we're a technology company, but it doesn't mean you have to use technology for everything. There still needs to be a personal touch. And much like what you said as well, product videos, it seems like something that would be blatantly obvious, but people don't think about it. And in a sense, do you think that is where there's always going to be a place for you in this industry, is because of the fact that there is always going to be a niche that you can kind of dip into?
It would be so old school for me to say yes, and that's what I truly believed. Because you and I both know that the moment that we think that we have got a foot in the door somewhere, technology will take it away from us. So I am not certain. And that one thing I do know is that getting together and motivating other humans in a group session will never die. That's not something that, and that's one of the reasons why I get so energized by emceeing events. And sometimes the events, one of the most fun events I did last year, I went to Cairns for 6 days with a housing company, and I got to be the MC at every single stage of their conference. And it was just, you get to know these people, and by the end of it, you've formed a connection. That's not something AI can do, but I'm certainly not going to say that that industry is AI proofed, because I really don't believe anything is. I know that the voicing thing, that will probably be taken off me one day, but that's cool. That's what it is. We'll just have to find something else to do. Never, ever believe that your skill set is redundant because of technology. The word that you have to use is pivot. You're finding pushed out, that you're being pushed out, you got to pivot. Pivot. That's my whole thing. Every single day, at the start of this year, I was like, pivot, get your website up and running. It took me a wee while because I'm not very good with websites, but I learned. And now I haven't put the website out there yet because I'm getting quite a bit of work and I don't want to get overwhelmed. But when I have the need to get more work, I'll pop the website out there. In fact, I might do it alongside this podcast, Jamie.
I think you're going to have to. And Bridget, something that we talked about like before we hit record, and I found this really interesting because it's the same thing I've thought. I did colleague of mine back in the UK who did very similar things, was emceeing events, and you touched on the fact that you said, I'm not sure I can be an MC because of the fact, especially for corporate gigs, because I don't have the inspiring story, or I didn't lose a leg because a shark bit it off, or I didn't have this big celebrity sports career, or I'm a musician. And you said, why do people want to have me at this event? And you said you fundamentally came to the realization that people just liked having someone there that could make the personal connection between the audience and obviously yourself. And do you think that's a misconception about the industry, is that you have to have some incredibly crazy story and it's not just about your ability to make a connection?
I do. I also think major companies these days are moving away from having more celebrities as speakers because, for example, I've been to many conferences where celebrities get up on stage, they tell their story. All of a sudden, there'll be a lot of tangents in there. I'll never forget sitting in a room of architects at an architectural conference, and the tangent of the guest speaker was so far off anything that they could have learned from it. There were a few people that were enjoying it, but the rest of the people came away scratching their heads going, what? What was that about? Like, that just took up an hour of my day and I've left my business to come to this conference. I believe that there is a place for an MC that is just a corporate MC. As I say to people when they book me, I didn't climb a mountain, I haven't written a book, I haven't overcome challenges. Well, we've all overcome challenges, haven't we, Jamie? But I don't have a special story. When I work for you as a corporate MC, I'm there representing your business. I'm not from your business, but you've called me in because you like my energy, you like where that's going, and you want to share that energy with your people. There is a place for it because a conference can't be based on a story from a person that everybody knows they paid to bring in for an hour and a half. That can't be the basis of a conference. Do you know something? I love working with amazing celebrity MCs who have amazing stories. So, for example, I did an ANZCO conference a couple of years ago, and it was with sheep and beef women farmers from around the South Island, and it was such an amazing conference. But the jewel in the crown was Kerry Woodham coming in her sparkly dress and her amazing stories to host the Saturday night dinner. Now, you can't be all things to all people. You're either a day MC and you can go to the night and you put your pretty frock on and you're like, right, let's get these awards done so you guys can get on the dance floor. This is about you. Or you can do the day event and then someone who's incredible at storytelling like Kerry Woodham comes in and they get so inspired. That's what I love. I love working with fellow MCs who are celebrities, who do have those amazing stories and just know how to absolutely rip the mickey out of themselves to be relatable to that crowd. And that's what I love doing. But I know my lane and I'm sticking to it. And that's all we can do. And then I'll pivot later. There's so many amazing things still that I want to do that I haven't even started yet.
If you like the podcast, I'd love for you to leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform and let me know your thoughts on the show. Don't forget, you can reach out to me via Instagram at beyondbroadcastpod or via email at beyondbroadcastpod@gmail.com. Until next time, take it easy.